Israel-Lebanon truce to take effect on Wednesday. And Russia expels British diplomat for allegedly spying on Moscow. Salam Malaysia Badani, I'm Brendan Lepal and you're watching World Today. US President Joe Biden said a Lebanon truce would take effect early Wednesday after Benjamin Netanyahu said a ceasefire with Hezbollah would allow Israel to focus its attention on Hamas and arch-enemy Iran. During Israel's Security Cabinet vote, 10 ministers were in favor and 1 against the ceasefire deal. Speaking at the White House, Biden said the ceasefire will begin on Wednesday at 4 a.m. local time. The United States is Israel's key ally and military backer, and Biden hailed the deal as good news and a new start for Lebanon. The United States, European Union, United Nations, and G7 had all pushed for a halt to the fighting between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah after more than a year of violence. Biden and French President Emmanuel Macron said the ceasefire would protect Israel from Hezbollah and create the conditions for a lasting calm. In a joint statement, the United States and France said they will ensure the deal is fully implemented. The announcement followed the heaviest day of raids on Beirut, including a series of strikes in the city's center, since Israel stepped up its air campaign in Lebanon in late September before sending in ground troops. The raids continued after Netanyahu's address, with the central commercial district of Hamra coming under attack. G7 foreign ministers said they will comply with their respective obligations regarding the arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, issued by the International Criminal Court, ICC. The group of 7 industrialized nations brings together Britain, Canada, Germany, France, Japan, Italy, and the United States. The ministers said in a joint statement that they reiterated their commitment to the international humanitarian law and will comply with their respective obligations. The G7 statement noted that Israel must fully comply with its obligations under international law in all circumstances, including international humanitarian law. The ICC issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu last week, prompting outrage from Israel and its allies, including the US, which is not a member of the ICC and has rejected its jurisdiction. All of the other G7 countries are members of the ICC, meaning they would have to arrest Netanyahu if he travels there. The ICC also issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu's former defense minister, Yoav Gallant. The Hague-based ICC said the warrants for the 2 individuals were for crimes against humanity and war crimes committed from at least 8 October last year until at least 20th May this year. French lawmakers have overwhelmingly backed President Emmanuel Macron in rejecting a free trade deal between the EU and South America's Mercosur bloc, saying it would hurt France's farmers. By a vote of 484 to 70, the lower house National Assembly approved the government's opposition to deal in its current form in a non-binding vote. Agriculture Minister Annie Geneva said, under the current conditions, the draft agreement does not guarantee fair competition for the farmers.
Cet état de fait implique que dans les conditions actuelles, la production des pays du Mercosur ne nous permet pas de garantir ni le respect des normes européennes pour les denrées importées telles que nous l'envisageons en Europe, ni l'établissement de conditions de concurrence loyales pour nos agriculteurs.
France is strongly opposed to the EU signing off on the deal with the Mercosur bloc of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay and Paraguay, saying that French farmers would face unfair competitions undercutting their livelihoods. EU countries such as Germany and Spain want the agreement to be swiftly completed, but Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that Warsaw would not accept the deal. France is seeking to form a blocking minority against the deal, an alliance that, under EU rules, would require at least 4 member states to succeed. Brazil's federal police have presented evidence to the Supreme Court that former President Jair Bolsonaro was directly involved in plotting a coup to overturn the outcome of the 2022 election he lost. This is according to an 884-page report unsealed yesterday. The final police report laid out evidence gathered from search warrants, wiretaps, financial records, and plea bargain testimony pointing to a criminal conspiracy with Bolsonaro at the helm. The report said Bolsonaro effectively planned, directed, and executed in coordination with other officials since at least 2019. Concrete acts that aim at the abolition of the democratic rule of law, with him remaining as president. Police also found that Bolsonaro had full knowledge of a plan to assassinate Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, then president-elect, based on dialogue captured between conspirators and meetings at the presidential residence. The report cited 8 main pieces of evidence to back up the formal accusation against Bolsonaro in the alleged coup attempt, including a meeting he called in December 2022 with top commanders of the armed forces, presenting them with a proposed coup d'etat and asking them to join the conspiracy. The country's prosecutor general will now decide whether to press charges against Bolsonaro and his alleged co-conspirators. Russia has expelled a British diplomat it accused of spying, telling London it will not tolerate undeclared intelligence officers operating in its territory. The accusations have ignited a fresh diplomatic feud with London. The Foreign Ministry in Moscow summoned British Ambassador Nigel Casey after Russia's Federal Security Service said it had uncovered a British spy. The agency said the British diplomat, identified as the embassy's second secretary, appeared to have carried out intelligence and subversive work, threatening the security of the Russian Federation. The Foreign Ministry said Moscow will not tolerate the activities of undeclared British intelligence staff on its territory, saying it was expelling him for lying on his accreditation and visa application. The UK government rejected the allegations and pledged a response in due course. It noted that this is not the first time that Russia has made malicious and baseless accusations against its staff. London and Moscow have expelled several of each other's diplomats on spying allegations in recent years. Russia's Federal Security Service said the man expelled yesterday was the replacement for one of 6 British officials that Russia had kicked out earlier this year, also on espionage charges. Moscow has vowed to retaliate after announcing that Ukraine had struck Russian military installations with US-supplied weapons. President Vladimir Putin previously had warned Kyiv and the West against the missile attacks. Moscow and Kyiv have been ratcheting up their deadly aerial broadsides with increasingly sophisticated weapons over recent days, spurring fears the conflict could further escalate. Ukraine first fired US-made missiles at Russia last week after getting the green light from Washington, and the Kremlin retaliated with an experimental hypersonic missile that hit the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. The Russian Defense Ministry said Ukraine's new missile strikes on 23rd November and 25th November targeted military installations and an airfield in Russia's western Kursk region, causing some damage to the infrastructure. It said a strike on the Kursk-Vostochny airbase wounded 2 servicemen, while a strike on an air defense battery damaged a radar system and also caused casualties. It added 3 of the 5 missiles fired in the first strike were shot down, while 7 of the 8 used in the second were destroyed. The ministry noted that retaliatory actions are currently being prepared. Ukraine's defense ministry has opened a probe into defective mortar shells being used against Russian forces. It has suspended their use after a scandal emerged in the press. According to local media, at least 100,000 Ukrainian-made 120mm shells have been removed from the front line. The announcement came as Ukraine's fatigued troops are struggling to contain advances by larger, better armed Russian forces in the east of the country. Soldiers began voicing concerns about the faulty shells in early November, saying the rounds would not explode, remain stuck in the mortar, or fall off target. The Defense Ministry addressed the reports in a statement saying it had stopped using them on the front line and seized part of the supply. It said the use and delivery of the shells to combat units have been put on hold until the causes of the malfunction are determined. It added, defective ammunition will be replaced with imported shells. The authorities have been investigating the reports of abnormal firing for about 2 weeks, but details have been deemed sensitive given the ongoing war. Early findings of the probe pointed to poor quality powder charges or violations of shell storage conditions as possible causes. rescuers recover 5 survivors and 4 bodies, a capsized boat. That and more coming up. British lawmakers have voted overwhelmingly in favor of plans to introduce some of the world's strictest anti-smoking rules, giving the green light for the bill to progress to the next parliamentary stage. The Tobacco and Vapes Bill aims to make vape less appealing and would ensure anyone aged 15 this year or younger would be banned from ever buying cigarettes. After a lengthy debate in the Parliament's House of Commons, a total of 415 lawmakers voted in favour of the bill, while 47 voted against it. It would ban vape advertising and the sale of vapes in vending machines, as well as restricting vape packaging and flavours that overtly appeal to children and young people, such as bubblegum and cotton candy. The bill will now go to the committee stage ahead of the third reading in the House of Commons. It will then move to the House of Lords before receiving the royal assent, a formality that does not involve further debate. Subject to consultation, the new bill would give the government powers to extend the indoor smoking ban to specific outdoor spaces, such as children's playgrounds and outside schools and hospitals. Britain banned smoking in almost all enclosed public spaces, including bars and workplaces, in 2007.
But because it raises issues of...
Rescuers yesterday recovered 5 survivors and 4 bodies from a dive boat that capsized off Egypt's eastern coast a day earlier. A military-led team rescued 2 Belgians, 1 Swiss national, 1 Finnish tourist, and 1 Egyptian, bringing the total number of survivors from the accident to 33. The vessel was carrying 31 tourists of multiple nationalities and a 13-member crew when it was hit by a large wave near Marsa Alam in southeastern Egypt early on Monday, causing it to capsize. A government source close to rescue operations said the 5 survivors were found inside one of the rooms of the boat, which had not filled with water. The group spent at least 24 hours in the overturned vessel after authorities first received distress calls at 5:30 a.m. local time on Monday. The 4 bodies recovered yesterday were also located inside the stricken vessel, and they have not yet been identified. The boat had embarked on a multi-day diving trip on Sunday and had been due to dock on Friday at the town of Hurghada, 200 kilometers north. The Red Sea governor said it capsized suddenly and quickly within 5 to 7 minutes of the impact with the wave, leaving some passengers unable to set out of their cabins in time. In other news, Indonesia has rejected an Apple $100 million investment proposal for the 2024 to 2026 period. Industry Minister Agus Gumiwang Kartasasmita said Apple had not met the government's requirements, especially when compared with the tech giant's investments in other countries. He added, currently, Apple still has not invested in production facilities or factories in Indonesia. He said the ministry urged Apple to immediately set up a production facility or factory in Indonesia based on the fairness principles, so the company does not have to file an investment scheme proposal every 3 years. Indonesia last month prohibited the marketing and sale of the iPhone 16 model over Apple's failure to meet local investment regulations, requiring that 40% of phones be made from local parts, as the country seeks to boost investments from giant tech companies. Despite the sales ban, the Indonesian government still allows iPhone 16 to be carried into Indonesia if they are not being traded commercially. Green industry and artificial intelligence AI will serve as the major driving engines of China's economic growth in the future. During a discussion on the China Media Group's program Dialogue, experts noted that China will benefit significantly from its leading position in green industry. According to former World Trade Organization WTO Director General Pascal Lamy, China excels and advances in some areas compared to numerous other nations.
Greening the economy are the ones where China has a leadership and which it can exploit in foreign markets because you have built a comparative advantage. This is an area, renewables, batteries, critical material, EVs, where you are better than many other countries.
Experts also highlighted China's progress in technology, especially in AI, as a significant factor in driving economic growth. And also, China will roll out stricter penalties for those involved in telecom and internet fraud starting the 1st of December. The enforcement aims to reduce the rising trend in criminal activity. A new guideline known as Joint Punishment Measures for Telecommunications and Internet Fraud and Related Crimes has been jointly issued by the authorities include Ministry of Public Security (MPS) and the National Development and Reform Commission. Set to take effect on 1st December, the new measures aim to strengthen the enforcement of the country's anti-telecom and online fraud law. Telecom and network fraud has surged largely due to a thriving underground economy that supports such illegal activities. Operators in these black and grey markets facilitate fraud by renting or selling SIM cards and bank accounts, trading personal information, promoting online traffic, developing software, and engaging in money laundering schemes. And in sports, Manchester City snapped losing streak with a draw. Stay with us. And kicking off our sports segment this afternoon, Johor Darul Ta'zim, JDT, suffered their second defeat in the 2024-25 AFC Champions League Elite ACLE after going down 1-0 to Shandong Taishan at the Jinan Olympic Sports Center in China last night. With this loss, JDT are fifth in the standings with 7 points from 5 matches, while Shandong are seventh, also with the same number of points, but with an inferior goal difference. The first half saw 3 Southern Tiger players shown the yellow card, with midfielder Ika Undabarena the first to be cautioned for a foul on Xie Weneng in the 23rd minute. The tense situation resulted in JDT's Juan Muniz also being shown the yellow card, while skipper Natso Insa too was booked in injury time of the first half. The second half saw both teams going for broke, but it was the home team who hit jackpot. With JDT throwing men up front to find a goal, Shandong struck through Jose Joaquim de Carvalho, commonly known as Zeka, in the 68th minute. JDT had previously drawn 2-2 with Shanghai Port, defeated Shanghai Shenhua 3-0, lost 3-1 to Guangzhou FC, and beat Ulsan Hyundai 3-0. The Southern Tigers will next face Thailand's Buriram United at the Sultan Ibrahim Stadium on 3rd December. In another match, Vissel Kobe extended their lead at the top of the AFC Champions League Elite Group stage table with a chaotic 3-2 victory over the Central Coast Mariners in Kobe on Tuesday. The Japanese J-League leaders, currently leading the table with 4 wins and a draw from their 5 games, are 4 points clear of second place Gwangju of South Korea, who have a game in hand. Kobe took the lead in the 40th minute when Takuwa Iwanami headed the ball onto Ryoho Kikuchi, who headed the ball in from close range. The home team doubled their lead 3 minutes into the second half, Storm Rue knocking the ball into his own net under pressure in the penalty box. Rue was involved again in the 54th minute when his pass into Kobe penalty area was sliced into his own net by Kobe's Hotaru Yamaguchi. The visitors leveled the scores in the 74th minute, Mikhail Doka setting up Bailey Bruntman, whose shot found the back of the net via a deflection. Daiju Sasaki scored the winner for Kobe in the 81st minute. His long-range effort was fired straight at Dylan Pere-Cullen. However, the Mariners goalkeeper fumbled the shot which bounced into the net to seal the victory. Defeat for the Mariners leaves them 11th in the 12-team league with just 1 point. Elsewhere, Al Hilal booked their place in the last 16 of the Asian Champions League Elite on Tuesday, despite being held to a 1-1 draw by hosts Al Saad in Qatar. Al Hilal took a perfect record into their meeting with Al Saad at the Jassim bin Hamid Stadium and went in front in the 10th minute when Ali Al Bulayi pounced at the far post after Mohamed Kano had flicked on Salim Al Dosari's corner. Alexander Mitrovic hit the crossbar in the second half as Al Hilal sought a second goal, but with 19 minutes remaining, Al Sadd leveled when Akram Afif's low cross was tapped in by Paulo Otavio. The draw, coupled with a 3-1 loss for Iraqi side Al Shorta against Al Wasl from the United Arab Emirates, means Cristiano Ronaldo's Al Nassr also progressed, having defeated Al Gharafa yesterday. The pair joined compatriots Al Ahly as early qualifiers for the knockout rounds, with the Jeddah-based side topping the standings in West Asia with maximum points after 5 matches. The top 8 teams in the 12-club league phase in both West and East Asia advanced to the last 16, which will be played over 2 legs on a home and away basis in March. And in other sporting news, Inter Miami appointed former Argentina midfielder Javier Mascherano as their new coach on Tuesday, reuniting him with old teammate Lionel Messi, who captains the Major League Soccer side. Mascherano, who has a contract until 2027, played for River Plate, Corinthians, Liverpool and Barcelona, where he was on the pitch with Messi, both at club and national level. The 40-year-old leaves the role coaching Argentina's youth teams, including the under-23 side at the 2024 Olympic Games. Inter Miami will be the first experience in club football management for Mascherano, nicknamed the Little Boss. As well as Messi, he will also be managing former Barca teammates such as Uruguay's Luis Suarez and Spain's Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets. The MLS side were left without a coach when Gerardo Tata Martino stepped down from his role, citing personal reasons. Miami topped the MLS regular season standings and won the Supporters' Shield with a record 74 points in 34 games, but were knocked out of the MLS Cup playoffs earlier this month. And in European football, Manchester City blew a 3-0 lead to draw 3-3 against Feyenoord in a Champions League thrill on Tuesday and extend their winless run to 6 games. Manager Pep Guardiola admitted his star-studded squad were fragile and lacking in confidence after the worst run of his managerial career. 2 goals from Erling Haaland either side of Ilkay Gundogan's deflected effort looks set to restore some order for City. But the defensive frailties that have been the root cause for a staggering collapse in recent weeks was exposed in the closing stages. Anis Haj Musa, Santiago Jimenez and David Hansko hit back to salvage a vital point for the Dutch Giants. A draw leaves City with plenty of work to do to reach the knockout stages, with trips to Juventus and Paris Saint-Germain to come in their next 2 Champions League games. Only the top 8 progressed directly to the last 16, with a place in the top 24 of the 36-team table, enough to reach the playoff round. City dropped to 15 on 8 points from 5 matches, just 1 point ahead of Feyenoord in 20th. And in Italy, Inter Milan took another step towards direct qualification for the last 16 of the Champions League with Tuesday's 1-0 win over Leipzig, which moved the Italians top of the table. Castello Luqueva's own goal midway through the first half was enough for Inter to win their 4th straight match in Europe's elite club competition. Inter should have been ahead in the 18 minutes when, during an intense spell of pressure from home side, Lautaro Martinez scuffed a great chance to lash in a low cross with his left foot. The hosts' main threat had been from crosses from the flanks, and it was a vicious Federico Di Marco delivery which Luqueva diverted into his own net in the 27th minute. Leipzig had done next to nothing in the first half, and they were lucky not to be 2 goals down almost immediately after restart. Marco Rosa travelled to Italy with just 17 players as an injury crisis left him with few options, and Leipzig only got into the game once Inter inexplicably slackened off in the second half. Leipzig's poor luck with injuries also looks to have got worse, as Arsene Ouedraogo had to be substituted on the hour mark after catching his foot in the turf and falling over. Over in Munich, a first-half header from Kim Min-jae guided Bayern Munich to a 1-0 home win over Paris Saint-Germain on Tuesday, damaging the French side's hopes of progressing in the Champions League. The centre-back scored after an error from PSG goalkeeper Matvei Safonov, starting ahead of Gianluigi Donnarumma, who spilled the ball into Kim's path. The South Korean's effort was enough to decide the rematch of the 2020 Champions League final, won by Bayern by the same scoreline, and all but extinguishes PSG's hopes of a top 8 finish and avoid avoiding the playoff round. Ousmane Dembele picked up the second yellow for an unnecessary challenge with half an hour remaining, with Bayern successfully shutting up short as a result. With just 3 games remaining, even making the knockouts is not a given for the French champions, who are in 26 spots, 2 outside the playoff placings. PSG hosts Manchester City in January, along with facing tricky away trips to Red Bull Salzburg and Stuttgart. Bayern's top 8 hopes look rosier after the win, which extended their run of clean sheets to 7 straight games in all competitions. Bayern now sit 11 and take on relative European minnows Shakhtar Donetsk, Feyenoord and Slovan Bratislava in their remaining games. That's it from us. Here's a recap of our top story. Israel has rolled out ceasefire to take effect on Wednesday. Do join us again tonight on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM at 8:30 p.m. for more. Or you can stream us live on RTM Click's website and mobile application. Till then, I'm Brendan Paul from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thanks for your company. Take care.